Yo, what's good? It's your boy Lo, man, and we are back for another episode of The World According to Lo. That's right, we're getting into it. And then today, I think I want to take a second and big myself up because I believe this is episode 46. Thank you. I know, I'm being consistent. And in that, I am able to say that I have almost hit the 50 episode mark. And that is big for me because it's a challenge to stay dedicated and just on top of me creating content for myself. I create content so much for other people, but in this year, I said that I was going to be committed to doing the things that build my brand, my story, my why, and sharing it with as many people as possible. So if you don't know, let me give you a real formal introduction. My name is Aloysius Ballard. I am a creative director, filmmaker, videographer, all of the things, editor. I am just a creative at heart, and I'm very passionate about storytelling and helping people share their why, as well as family, community, because I believe in all of those things. Now, if you are new to The World According to Lo, I want to welcome you. Welcome. And I hope you will come back and visit with me again, because this is not just my world, it's our worlds colliding to make something beautiful for all of us, okay? So in today's episode, we are going to discuss a topic that I've realized I've been sharing with a lot of the young creatives and creatives in general that I've been coming across lately who have forgotten about the power of networking, but with a twist. Hear me out. I'm going to share the power of networking based on storytelling. Okay. Now, this is not going to be a super long one, so I need you to get your notes, open up your notes on your phone, whatever you do to jot this stuff down, because you have to take advantage of this information I'm about to share with you. Now, I can tell you this because in my career, I grew up in an area. I'll tell you, I grew up on the coast of Mississippi. If you know Mississippi, it's often known to be last in a lot of places. But one thing that I did learn and love about my area is that there's a strong sense of community and a strong sense of family and work ethic. If you come and meet anybody from around here, you're going to get those attributes from most of us that reside here. Now, within that, it also bred a lot of situational conflict as far as it concerns me being a filmmaker or a creative, because the only thing that was really an outlet was the newspaper or like local news and TV. Those were not things I wanted to get in. I wanted to use my film desire and my passion for storytelling in multiple ways. And because of that, I was able to go into a creative route. I went into music production and engineering. And because of that, it set me on a path as a creative, but it wasn't necessarily the one that really made me passionate about doing, right? Although I loved it tremendously. I've always been a musician since I was 3, and I was very diverse in that skill set, but it wasn't what I truly sought out to do. Now you look at me and you see that I am an award-winning filmmaker. I have done things that I am very proud of in my career, and it is a very diverse portfolio. Now, I didn't just get there because I willed myself there. I got there through the power of networking. And I want to break down some of the things that I've learned that you should use when it comes to your story and how it can help you open doors that you want to see in your career. So we're going to get right into it, okay? Now, I believe firmly in all of these things. You can take what you will and use it how you want to apply. But here's my depiction of what I feel is an adequate guideline or blueprint to you developing your storytelling fused with networking. So the first thing I believe in is mentorship. Now, a lot of people don't feel like mentorship is something that is important, but I do, because it allows you to have someone who can assist you in crafting your story and your journey. Now, a lot of times we aren't aware of the things that we're doing. We're just trying to get somewhere. But what we fail to realize is that every day we wake up, every day we get into a sense of, what am I building, right? It goes from an idea to a blueprint to an execution to materials that you need to build, the process of building where we want to be and what we want to see in our lives. So I'm a very big advocate when it comes to mentors and having someone who helps guide you through your journey. Now, the first thing I want you to remember is that foundation of building a story comes with you having that mentor. Number two, the second thing I want you to know is that storytelling is based off of I'm going to say this again. Storytelling is based off your background. I'm going to let that cook. Write that down. I want this to be a quick interactive pod, right? So storytelling is based off of your background. What does that mean, Lo? What does that mean? How do I make that apply to my life? Well, remember that stories sell and facts tell. Now, if you think about anything that you actually remember, the first thing you actually want to remember is the story. You may not remember all of the facts, but you remember how that story made you feel. Now, for example, when you're growing up, like there was the story of the three bears, right? And then you had the girl who comes and eats their porridge. She lays in their bed, and then she finds out, which one is the most comfortable. But in that, there's a series of things that you talk about that you may not remember, but you remember the story. You may not remember her name. You may not remember what she looked like, but you remember the gist of the story. And that's the power of storytelling and how we relate. Now, this transcribes to you because people will remember your story. As I journeyed out of Mississippi and I started traveling to different places that had opportunities, one thing that people always wanted to know was where I was from, what made me drive all the way up from Mississippi to an event or an opportunity or to a set or to a recording or to a production that would just motivate me to do that. Because when I would share my story about being from Mississippi and having to work hard to develop a work ethic, an ability to not sound like I was from the South, being able to articulate, to know various things that could be useful to people, all of those things were things people remembered. Oh, you the guy from Mississippi that really wants to be in film. You need to meet so-and-so. You need to do this. You need to come with us. We're going to be in Chicago next month or next week. We're going to be in Nashville next week. Why don't you come? You should meet so-and-so. He's from the South as well, but he works with us a lot and he's a part of the crew. All of these things are things that come from your background. So you got to be able to share your background. You got to be able to tell people what it is that makes you and your journey unique. Now, moving on, I want you to remember something, fact number 3, okay, which is every great story has conflict. Think about your favorite movie. One thing that I know that everybody talks about recently was how good Endgame was with Marvel. But Endgame was different because none of the stories that we had seen to this point had a villain or a conflict as monumental as Thanos. Thanos brought conceptual conflict where you had to conceive where the root of his chaos came from. Think about it. Thanos wasn't just a bad guy. Thanos had a mission based on his villain background. He talked about being able to scour the universe. And when he scoured the universe, he saw a common problem where there was overpopulation and not enough resource. Now, we can all relate to that because it's kind of like the world today. We have a ton of people, but, you know, how much food can we produce? How much water is going to be reserved? Like, can the earth continue to produce the amount of needs and resources that we as a humanity or a population demands? And in this conflict, it was like something we had never seen our superheroes face, but it was something that we all could relate to. See, conflict is something that you have to lean into because your pain is your gain and someone else's too. Think about that. Your pain, the things that you endured, we never fought Thanos, but we could feel the pain of Iron Man dying or the Hulk and Black Panther and all these superheroes being stressed to the core because we had seen them be so triumphant in their past. See, a lot of us have those stories. We have things that we have committed to, things that we know to be our strong suits, only for the conflict to come in. Now, I'll give you a little more insight into my backstory, right? So I ended up getting opportunities to become the filmmaker and videographer that I wanted, but it was at a price. The conflict for me was all of my opportunities were outside of my state. That means I had to be away from my wife, my family, my friends, the things that needed my attention back home. If I was pursuing my job or my career, it was conflicting with something that was important in my life. Much like the story of Endgame. Thanos was the conflict of the superheroes, the Avengers, keeping Earth and those who resided here safe because he wanted to snap and remove all of those people, causing ongoing conflict. Now, when you are willing to share what something cost you or what it made you sacrifice, it leads to my next point, which is you have to share the solution. Now, to stay in the same story of the end game, there was something our superheroes had to they had to sacrifice. There was a solution. You could collect all of the Infinity Stones by going back in time, but it cost them something. It changed them. Often, when we find a solution, it changes us in a bit in our story. But that change makes you a little bit more relatable. We've all lost people that matter to us. We've seen friendships have to bear the unspeakable loss that we saw with Black Widow and the Archer guy. I can't think of his name right now, but you get my drift. It cost people to sacrifice themselves. Iron Man. Doctor Strange had to part with something he made an oath to keep. All of these things were things that served the solution, but it came at a cost. But sharing that solution makes your story more relatable. Now, I want you to think about the next step would be to share your future. And this is where you should really be excited. This is the part where you allow people to see where you are aspiring to be. When I came back home and in my story, I decided that my family and the things that I wanted were more important. My presence here was more befitting. But in that, it changed me because the filmmaker I was becoming being in all these environments, I was no longer able to be that guy here in my area. So what I had to do to bring balance, change the dynamics of who I was and how I developed. But it offered a solution because now I was able to bring those skill sets that I had learned and influence people to see the value of what they could bring. And it opened doors to me that weren't originally here in the beginning. And because of that, I was able to share with people about my production company and my desires to be a filmmaker, to be a storyteller, to be a person known on being passionate about helping people share and tell their why. Because that's what buys us all in. Stories. Why should I listen? Why should I care? Why are you doing what you're doing? And every time I share that story about how I started my business and my dream with a bottle of Windex and a cleaning cloth because I didn't have any money or I didn't have the opportunities here or afforded here to make a career. And because of that, it allowed me to work, to save up, to make the money and the capital that I needed to go buy a camera and to be able to go out and document different projects and different experiences, to buy the MacBook that I needed, to be able to update my gear and my things that I could use as tools to tell stories and whys for other people. You got to be able to share your future. Now, I'm going to recap real quick because I want you to make sure you got this. Number one, the foundation of all of this is you having a mentor. If you want to know how to find a mentor, I will tell you, find someone you see doing what you want to do, or that can see into you what you want to be and how to help you get there. Sometimes mentorship comes by serving. Sometimes you just got to be willing to help someone without anything in return. That means you may have to go volunteer and be an extra hand or offer them in exchange. Don't go just asking. Be willing to do something for that person so that you can add value to the time that they're sowing into you. Number two, storytelling is based off your background. Your background. Tell your background when you meet people. Remember that stories sell and facts tell. People will always remember your story before they remember all of the facts of what you're sharing. Number three, every story has great conflict or has conflict. Every great story has conflict. Every great story has something that you have to overcome. That's very important. You got to be able to identify what it was that caused you to be in turmoil, that was a disruptor of your day and your journey. Number four is share the solution. What did you discover that fixed the problem, that added balance back to your life? What did you discover that allowed you to become who you wanted to be and how you wanted to be? And then five, share how you feel about your future. Your future is bright because you have every ability, you have every right to see yourself become what you are aspiring to be. And I want to say, give yourself time to grow into that. It's not overnight. Nothing that lasts is built overnight. Now, this leads me to my next point. I want to give you a call to action. Over the next 30 days, I want you to commit to sharing your story with at least 100 people or 100 times. This can include family, friends, new people. I don't care if you're sharing it to the waitress at the restaurant you're sitting down with at lunch. Wherever you go, work on sharing your story. But I want you to work on it till you get down to 60 seconds or close as possible. See, the more you exercise your story and your storytelling muscle, the better you become at telling a story, at being able to share who you are and what you are. And then finally, I want to leave you with a question that I want you to answer in the comments. I want you to share with me your backstory. We're going to talk about this in the comments. There's a reason for this. By sharing your background in the comments, and if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can go to youtube.com/BEPS Films, or you can search my name, Aloysius Ballard, and you can join in on this conversation. You'll be able to go and share your story so that you can connect and read the stories of other people. I guarantee you'll find somebody in there that you relate to, or that has had the problem that you're facing right now, or maybe in the problem you're facing right now. Either way, sharing your story is something that I want you to learn how to harness the power of, because it makes you relatable and it makes you authentically able to connect with other people. To thyself be true is something I always live by, and I strive to remember in every aspect of my life. Storytelling allows us to get back to the oldest connection that we as humanity or humans have. Everybody, for the most part, has a childhood connected to storytelling. The things that we often hear as children are stories, which unlock the very nature of our minds. So it's only right that when we connect, when we share stories, we unify in a way that allows us to become stronger, more befitting, and ready to grow and develop. I hope you enjoyed this podcast today. I'm excited about hearing all that you guys are doing to develop your storytelling and your why, and using that to power your ability to connect with others through networking. We have to remember that social media is great, but the power of human connection is what allows us to become all that we're meant to be. Until next time, man, it's your boy Lo. I want to remind you that you can always help support me by signing up for my Patreon at patreon.com/Aloysius Ballard. My tiers start at $5 a month. $5 a month is something that most of us waste, or we have in the tuck, in your coffee pot, in your ashtray. Is very little, but it goes a long way when it comes to me being able to create and do things as a creator to bring you this content. So I hope you would consider it, even if it's for a month, even if it's for 2 months or a year, whatever the case is. I hope this has been something that added value and helped you along your day. And I look forward to hearing from you and seeing how you're applying the things we discussed today. Until next time, man, I appreciate you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Peace.
It's the world according to Lo. So act like you already know. It's gonna be a good show.